And then I started looking at some near-death experience. People have been coming back and telling stories. And a lot of people have stories that they shouldn't know. Blind people have floated above their body. They've been blind since birth, and they've described things.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide. And we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention and inviting us into a closer relationship. I thank you for your stories of encounter. Angels, divine interventions, near-death experiences, visions, prophetic dreams, God incidents, big and small. I am your host, Trapper Jack. Question: when was the last time God disciplined you? I mean, really handed it to you. It's a silly question, right? Nobody thinks that way. Nobody thinks that as we go through our day, God's going and nailing us for something, right? Silly question. Silly. Isn't it? Yeah. Okay, as I record this is Ash Wednesday, so let's go get some ashes together.
Remember, you are dust, and to dust you will return.
The ashes representing repentance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It all begins with I'm sorry. Sometimes we forget that part, but it's supposed to begin with I'm sorry. You want to get closer to God. You want to have experiences with God. You want to experience more of heaven, if you will. It begins with I'm sorry. I'm a sinner, right? I'm gonna borrow from just a wonderful biblical movie. It's a tremendous movie. Not the Ten Commandments, not the Passion of the Christ, not the greatest story ever told. No, I'm going to go right to the best of the best. Bruce Almighty.
Okay, God. You want me to talk to you? Then talk back. Tell me what's going on. What should I do? Give me a signal. I need your guidance, Lord. Please send me a sign.
Yeah. Jim Carrey pleading with God, who we find out later is Morgan Freeman. It's a very funny movie. And haven't we all been there? We've all been there, right? Just show me a sign. Show me the way. Give me some guidance. I'm in pain here, right? And then when we still feel nothing, then we start getting a little angrier.
Thank God you're all right.
God, yeah. Let's thank God, shall we? For His blessings are raining down upon me. Wait, that's not rain!
Bruce, please don't do that, honey. You know that everything happens for a reason.
That I don't need. That is a cliche. That is not helpful to me. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I have no bird. I have no bush. God has taken my bird and my bush.
Oh, I see. So God is picking on you? Is that what you're saying?
No, He's ignoring me completely.
Have we not been there? He's just ignoring me. Why is He ignoring me? Come on. God, where are you? And we start getting a little more upset. Maybe to the point of...
Fine! The gloves are off, pal! Come on, let me see a little wrath. Smite me, almighty smiter! You're the one who should be fired! The only one around here not doing his job is you! Answer me!
Yeah, it goes something like that. Okay. Smite me, almighty smiter. You ever gotten to that point? Come on, smite. God doesn't work that way in our lives, does He? He doesn't discipline us like that and just slam us down, does He? Well, there are those times in the Bible that seem to indicate that. Well, you have Old Testament, right? Lot's wife. We've gone through the Lot's wife story, right? Here's the whole family running. The whole family is running away from Sodom because the angel says, run now, just don't look back. The only thing you have to do is not look back. And who looks back? Sorry, ladies, it's the wife. I have to. Why do you have to look back? Well, there could be a fire sale at Kohl's. I don't want to miss. Vroomp. Salt. She turns into... cause and effect. Let's connect the dots on this, okay? Let's connect the dots sometimes with our pain, okay? What'd she do? She disobeyed, didn't she? That's pretty dramatic discipline, but bam, got it, right? Turned into salt? Oh my gosh. Then the whole family, as you know, dragged her off to their new home where she provided seasoning for the rest of their lives. They purchased a pillar of pepper and then... So I just recently literally stumbled upon this reading in, it's the Old Testament, 1 Kings, chapter 13, I think. It's about this man of God. Calls him that, a man of God, a prophet, right? And God tells him, just do this one thing for me, okay? Again, one thing. Don't go into that town and have bread and water with anybody. That's it. That's all you got. The equivalent would be is if God said to me, don't go into the burbs and have a burger and a beer. That's all. But I like burgers and beer. That's it. You don't just, that's it. But when you get the mushrooms and the grilled onions on the burger, it's like, don't do it. That's all I got to do. Just don't go into the burbs and have the burger. Okay, so the prophet says, no problem, God. I got it. That's the only thing okay, got it. So this guy walks up to the prophet and says, hey, let's go into town and get a burger and a beer. And the man of God says, can't do it. God says, I'm not supposed to. And then the guy says to the man of God, oh, no. My angel just told me that you can. And the man of God says, really? I can go into the burbs and have a burger and a beer? Yeah. So they go into town and they have a burger and a beer. Okay. Well, when the man of God is leaving town, he runs into a lion. This never turns out well. Yeah. So the lion kills the guy, doesn't eat him, just kills him, drags him off into the weeds. So, wow, connect the dots. Did he do something wrong? Yeah, he disobeyed. And part of that was discernment. We're supposed to be discerning people. We're supposed to be, as we get closer to God, to discern who the good guys and the bad guys are, when we're being lied to and when we're not, on a spiritual level, right? Where to follow. Am I following God or not, right? Or am I just playing into my own needs? I want the burger and the beer. It's so good. No, we got to follow God. You know, we need to have that discernment, right? Look at Moses. Once again, we're connecting the dots here, right? Okay. Moses, holy Moses, we're talking about here. What did he do wrong? Because he got disciplined. He did? Yeah. Here he is. He's out with these people, these Israelites, right, for 40 years, leading them in all their disgruntled, angry nature at times and wayward ways. 40, you know how long 40 years is? Take your age that you are now. Got it. Subtract 40. Wow. Man, you were young if you were born at all, right? Okay, from then until now is 40 years, a long time. He's been putting up with all this nonsense, right? And there they are, disgruntled again, and he and Aaron are walking up to these people because they're upset because there's not enough water. They're thirsty. Where's the water, Moses? And Moses gets all upset and he says, what do we have to do here? What do we have to do here? What do we have to do? Do I have to strike this rock? Or I think back then they said, do I have to striketh this rocketh? Doieth, in order for water to poureth fortheth? And they go, what? And he hits the rock twice with his staff, twice. And then the water gushes out and they are no longer thirsty. Great. Wonderful, right? Everyone's happy, except God. What did he do wrong? God says, hey, Mo, yeah, you and your brother Shemp, come over here. Come here. And he says, what's with the striketh the rocketh twitheth thingeth? I told you, speak to the rock, speaketh to the rock, not hit it. What's the big show? And what's this? What do we have to do? You give all glory to you and Aaron and none to me? You give me no glory and you give glory to yourself? What's the big show here? Ego, right? For that, you're not allowed to go into the promised land. I'll let you see it, but you can't go in. Holy Moses got, after all those years? Yeah. After all those years, because he should have known better. Sorry. So he let him go up to this tall, big mountain. Moses crawls up there and goes, oh, look, the promised land. And then he dies. Okay. Let's go to the New Testament. Does God get any nicer? Because we're connecting the dots here, right? Between God's discipline and something that people have done wrong. Does God discipline us? Well, let's just move to the New Testament for a second. For example, Paul, when he was Saul, when St. Paul was Saul, and he got knocked off his horse and blinded, there's a little bit of discipline because Saul wasn't just some pagan guy, some mean guy going around killing the Christians. This was a man of God. Saul was a learned man. This guy knew his Torah. He studied the Torah. He understood his relationship with God was important. He was a good Jewish man. Being knocked off his horse and blinded, a little bit of discipline there. And then later, you know what Paul wrote? Don't treat lightly God's discipline. Do not faint when he reprimands. Paul goes on to say, God disciplines everyone he loves. I think that's us. God scourges. Ow, that sounds painful. This isn't judgment, huh? This is like now? God scourges all of his sons. Ooh, that is all of us, right?
I'm a victim. God is a mean kid sitting on an anthill with a magnifying glass, and I'm the ant. He could fix my life in 5 minutes if he wanted to, but he'd rather burn off my feelers and watch me squirm.
That's a scourge. I'd call that a scourge because Paul says he's a father. Like any father, you discipline in the moment, don't you? If you're well, when my son Stephen was 3 years old, I remember being in the front yard and he just shot across the street. Right? I mean, cars could have been coming. It could have been really ugly. So my wife Beth runs across the street, gives him a swat on the behind, and says, "You don't do that." Should I have said, "No, Beth, please. I'll talk to him in 80 years"? No, of course not. I'd be a horrible father. Good fathers discipline in the moment, right? What if my son had, at the age of 16, grabbed the car keys of the family car, heads out on the highway, goes 120 miles an hour, whereupon he's pulled over, ticketed, and thrown in jail? Should I have said, "Oh, please, I'll take away his keys in 60 years"? Horrible father. Well, we kind of think of God that way, don't we, though? We think of him as just kind of sitting there looking down going, well, when judgment day comes, I will certainly talk to that child about. No, in the moment. That's what Paul says, and the Bible seems to indicate there's discipline in the moment. So when was the last time you were disciplined by God? Connecting the dots again. We haven't been connecting the dots when we're in those moments of, "Help me, where are you? What's going on?" Perhaps in those moments, those are the moments when maybe we're being disciplined. As I look back on my entire life, when I look at the most painful times of my life, if I move just before that moment, I go, "Ooh, there was that. Ooh, is that and I connect the dots and I go, should they be connected?" And of course, we do have to be careful because Jesus was asked, "Is this blind man, is it his sin or his parents' sin that he is blind?" And Jesus said, "Neither. No, you're looking at it all wrong. This is for the glory of God." And we have to remember that things do happen in this world. We do live in a fallen world, and let's not blame God for the things that the ruler of this world is responsible for. And let's see. Secondly, sometimes there's some Job stuff going on where God allows, and sometimes God gets silent, and we are to trust him. Simply trust more. It's a training to trust more. But then there's that third thing, that discipline thing. Okay, let's go through this. A year and a half ago, I was having some spiritual warfare issues, shall we say. In other words, I mean, it really was the equivalent of, hey, you want to go into town and get a burger and a beer. Buying the lie, if you will. I bought the lie. And as soon as I realized, I went, "Oh, I'm sorry, God." And God said, "Really? You know better. How many years we've been kind of working together here? You should have known better." I know, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry it wasn't enough. Not for me. And I was in pain. And I was in pain a long time, months. Every day I was in the same pain because I was like frozen. I just felt frozen. Everything in my life just froze. I've heard purgatory described as that place where you can see heaven, just can't get there, don't qualify. And you also see everything you're still attached to, and you just hang there. And that's where I was hanging. Week after week, month after month, about 4 months of just, I said I was sorry. What am I missing here? Well, in my case, I'm Catholic. So is that different? Yeah, sorry, Catholics, it's different, makes it different. Sacrament. System's been put in place where you say, "I'm sorry" to God, yes, and you say, "I'm sorry" to the person. If anybody you've wounded, you say, "I'm sorry" to them. But you also, there's this system where you go see the priest. I hadn't done that yet. It always starts with "I'm sorry." Let me tell you what happened, though, after my "I'm sorry" confession version for me being a Catholic. That's when I got the inspiration for Touched by Heaven. And even then, when I thought, I don't know if there'll be enough people to give me their stories. I don't know. And I said to Alexa, "What's today's Bible verse?" And Alexa said, "Commit to the Lord in whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." Right out of Proverbs. I went, "What? What'd you just say, Alexa?" Commit to the Lord in whatever you do, and he'll establish your plans. He will make it happen. He'll work with you. Okay. And away we went, right? Or then I started getting the push to do some more speaking, right? To do more speaking. And I stumble upon this one podcast, and this guy says, "Hey, and I'll teach you. I'll give you the course. Usually $1,500. But for you, until midnight tonight, act now, and it's only $1,000. And I went, $1,000? Can I rationalize $1,000? I don't know. I'm not even going to tell Beth about this one. No, I'm not going to do it. I'll figure out the business of speaking on my own. I can do this on my own. That night I was giving a talk, and a woman came up and she just said, "Hey, thanks for what you're doing, your ministry and all that." Gave us a little thank you card and all that. Okay. We went home, and when Beth opened up the thank you card, she said, "There's a check in here." Do you know how much she gave us? 1,000? How did you know? Nobody gives me $1,000, folks, okay? Nobody gives me $1,000. And somebody gave us 1,000 on that day, act by midnight tonight. God was speaking. This is how God speaks to us. This is no great coincidence, And then a couple of months later, when we were kind of formulating maybe how to go about going into churches, all of a sudden 6 churches reached out to me without me saying anything to anybody, just 6 churches. And then there was that day last summer when I was down in the exercise room and there's 2 fluorescent lights. And one of them had been out forever, 6 months, 8 months, just been out forever. And then finally my wife or son or somebody had replaced the bulb. And I thanked them for it because I went down there and saw it was on. And they said, we didn't replace the bulb. And I said, what? Wait, that thing's been out for like 8 months. It just suddenly came back on again? And I look for Jesus in those moments. Why would a fluorescent light, and they always flicker forever, and then they finally go out and stay dead, only this one, after 8 months of being dead, came back? Why? And I look for Jesus. Where are you, Jesus? Are you somewhere in this, Jesus? Are you speaking somewhere in this? And he went, yeah. And I went, oh, that's right, because that was the day I began preparing my first talk, which was to be delivered at St. Francis Xavier Church here. That was the first day of my new career, and here I was preparing to give a talk, and on that day, the light came back on. And it's still on, by the way. I go down there every time I flip the light on, I just go, wow. Hi, how you doing, Jesus? Back on again. And it's been, 8 months since then? I don't think fluorescent lights do that too much, and I don't believe in coincidence anymore, and I'm seeing God and all that. I am seeing when I went off the reservation and the pain, I connect the dots. And when I see all these blessings lining up, again, I connect the dots. That is how God speaks to me and to you when we're paying attention. We can see him. We see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention and draw us into a deeper relationship. That's all part of the conversation. The one that we have with God.
Be right with you. I'm trying to fix a light. Tell me if it's working.
Yeah, seems to be. Kind of bright, though.
Yeah, it is for most people. Spend their lives in the dark, trying to hide from me.
Remember, you are dust, and to dust you will return.
And to dust you shall return. But that's the physical part. We're a duality. Our eternal part, our eternal soul, of course, moves on, and God, in his mercy, lets us know that there's more.
This is just bizarre.
This is Roger Baldacci.
My daughter comes in our bedroom. We're getting ready for bed, and she was saying goodnight, and she said, "Oh, look, I found this change this morning. It was quarters and dimes. I don't know what it was." And my wife said, "Oh, that's the sign from Dad. Her father had recently passed away, and apparently he had this thing with he would always look for change, and he would find it. And after he died, family members started finding change everywhere." I said, "Come on, you're just applying this meaning to a very common everyday occurrence. I can find change anywhere. It doesn't mean it's a message from your father." I was very skeptical, but I'm also a believer. But I was like, even this, I was like, come on. So the next night, I wake up in the middle of the night. I feel a pinch on my chest, not right next to my cross, really. It was a pinch that hurt enough to wake me up. Okay, and I'm a sound sleeper. So I'm like, what the heck is that? And I feel under my t-shirt, there's a dime. I didn't know it was a dime at first. I picked it up and I leaned over. I got my phone and I lit the screen. And through the light of the screen, I could see it was a dime. And I was like, what the? But I'm half asleep. So I'm like, that's just weird. And I put the dime on the bedside table and the phone down, and I go back to bed. So in case people are thinking, well, that's just a very realistic dream, I wake up, the dime is there. It's still there. I still have it. I have it in a case. and I tell my wife, I'm like, and she's like, well, there you go. He's telling you he's there. I said, okay, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disbelieve.
What else do you do with that? It's like, well, somebody just put it there.
Right, but here's the thing, because I know how debunkers think and skeptics think. Oh, the dime was there. You didn't notice it. I'm like, I'm not an idiot. When I'm getting into bed, there's either a dime on my mattress or there's not. Okay, and I was wearing t-shirt and boxers. It's not like I had a pocket that it fell out of. And it's not like I was shirtless and I rolled over on it and maybe the sweat made it stick to it. It was underneath my shirt and there was a pinch. That woke me up. Okay? That's not just, the next morning I found a dime on the rug by where I put my feet. That's easily debunked.
We've had the Methodist minister who's finding coins in her, bed. I've got Linda LaMarca, she's the one who she found exactly 100 dimes over several months, adding up to exactly $10. Finding it, like you, finding them where they weren't. She cleans a kitchen counter and suddenly there's a dime there. It's like, what? There's a dime on top of the car, like at the top of the top part of the car, in the middle of that. And it's like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Just crazy stuff.
I saw this documentary about messages from loved ones who died in 9/11. And one story was about a woman, how they met at the World Trade Center. They would say, penny for your thoughts, and it was like a dime. It was a quarter for your thoughts. And they kind of traded each other, and they ended up getting married. And so he dies in the World Trade Center. So the wife starts finding quarters everywhere, and literally in her refrigerator, a stack of quarters.
A stack of quarters.
A stack of quarters. So it's not like, you had one in your sleeve and you reached for the milk and then it fell out and it was there. It was a stack of quarters in the refrigerator, not in front of the refrigerator. These things are just so specific. My father had passed away, and this was a couple days after he passed away, and I'm a freelance writer out of work, so I was getting some sun in the backyard, sitting on my lounge chair, one of the perks of being a freelancer. And so I just mentally thought in my head, Dad, can you send me a sign? And as soon as I thought that, I heard hello, and it was his voice, the way he said hello, because I have a garage under my house, and when my father was alive, he would come and take our trash to the dump, and he would come in, and then he would yell upstairs to let us know he was there, and he said, "Hello, Roger," just that way, and I heard this audible hello just like that, and I jumped off the lounge chair, and I was like, "What is that?" And I looked around. Is it someone echoing from across the street? There are people building a house nearby, and it didn't appear to come from them. It literally was right outside my ear. So, and I want to thank you for your efforts in bringing people to God, because I think it's amazing. It really is. And I think, like, real people, and that's what people need to know, that these are everyday occurrences, and I'm just a regular guy, and I had some cool things happen to me.
And I appreciate your, I don't know, we shouldn't call it courage. It's just what's going on, isn't it, Roger?
Yeah.
It's just all those things that we read about from 2,000 years ago. They didn't stop. God didn't stop.
Yeah.
It's still the same
exactly.
God, still doing the same. I am so excited by what God is doing now.
Oh,
I always equate it with a rock band that, it's nice. I love the oldies guys, but your new music's good too. It's that kind of thing,
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
And his new music is fabulous.
I'm right with you. So I'm a freelance advertising writer and creative director. Okay, so I used to be a big shot creative director and a big ad firm in Boston, and then I got laid off. I made too much money and was too old. So I had a Catholic upbringing, but it's funny. I kind of went through the motions, and in fact, to be honest, I scoffed at sort of God and intelligent design. I was like, oh, come on, it's just evolution. I really was. I kind of went through the things because I had to do them, but I wasn't really, committed to God. And it only when I got older. And I don't know how I got through it. I think through some paranormal podcasts, and then I started looking at some near-death experience stories on YouTube, and then I did some reading, and I read some books on it. And then the more I saw it, the closer I got to God, and I realized that these things happen. They've been happening since Roman times. People have been coming back and telling stories, and a lot of people have stories that they shouldn't know. They come back with information they shouldn't know. Mm-hmm. Blind people have floated above their body. They've been blind since birth, and they've described things. So
Yeah, that's a doozy, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot. I've talked about near-death experiences, obviously, a number of times, but I had forgotten. The blind guy, forgot that one. That there are people who could not see, and then suddenly they could.
Oh,
in this.
Yeah.
How could they know? How could they know?
Exactly. And this story is fascinating to me. And so it was a guy who died, and then he was able to travel outside his body, and he was able to go up 2 floors to the neonatal unit. And he noticed in the second row, second crib, there was a baby that was crying, and he was able to, with his eyes, scan to the body and see that the baby had a cracked rib. And he knew what nurse had dropped the baby. So he comes back to, and the first thing he says is, 2 floors up, there's a baby, second row, second crib, cracked rib, woman, dark hair, blah, blah, blah. So they go up, they confront the nurse. She initially denied it, and then she admitted it. And this is a guy, how do you explain that?
Maybe God. No, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
It's the universal energy thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever that thing is. Yeah.
I know it.
I think those who don't believe, or those who kind of preach atheism or whatever, they have more faith than I do. They have way more faith. The things they have to believe in order for all those things to be coincidence, and how this whole solar system and how there's order to things, you got to have so. And I look at just look at the human body.
I say the same thing.
Look at these squishy parts inside that are protected by a rib cage. Because why? Because somehow in our development, somehow nature knew to do that. It's like, what? Like I say, they have way more faith than I do. Way more faith. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned, I'm a freelance advertising writer and creative director, and I was hired by an ad agency to write a series of commercials and online video content and some TV bumpers for talk show host Wendy Williams for the Investigation Discovery Channel. So I wrote those. There was a lot of them. They had different endings, versions, etc. And we had a director who was going to direct them, but a scheduling conflict, he dropped out. So I said, what the heck, I'll do it. And I had worked with celebrities in the past, and I'd recently directed George Lopez and Guy Fieri in a series of videos. So I said, how hard can it be? It's a set, it's a teleprompter, I'll do it. So the client approves me and fly to New York. And but meanwhile, throughout the process, I'm learning that the client can be very difficult. And there were a lot of changes. Like I said, there was a lot of volume of content we had to shoot. So the night before, in my New York City hotel room, I wake up with what can only be described as a panic attack. I've never had one before. I haven't had one since. But my heart was racing. I was sweating. I felt like I was dying. And these thoughts are racing through my head. I'm in over my head. I'm going to be exposed as a fraud. What if Wendy is a diva? This client is supposed to be terrible. Oh my God. All these thoughts are racing through my head. And so I got out of bed and I knelt down. I clasped my hands together and I prayed to Jesus, please take this anxiety away from me. I don't remember the actual words, but it was something to that effect. Now, instantly, I felt as if warm oil were poured on the top of my head, and it just proceeded to flow down my body, and all the anxiety left where that sort of oil line, as it were, just pushed right through and down and out of my body. Now, I say oil because you know what water is like if it's, dumped on your head. It's fast, and this was a slow, even, and it was warm, and there was just no anxiety. And when it passed through and I was completely anxiety free, I said thank you. And I went to bed. I didn't toss and turn for 2 more hours worrying. I went right to bed. The next day, I get on set, and Wendy turned out to be a peach. She was lovely. The client was nice, and everything worked out really well. So my fears were unfounded. But
oh, that's nice.
I'll never forget that feeling, though, because I had since told that story to, people who will listen. And one of my friends, he's one of these debunkers we've talked about. And he said, well, that's just the placebo effect. You wanted to feel better and you asked for help and you thought you would receive help, so you felt better. And I believe that the placebo effect is real. I mean, I've got a friend who's a scientist, and that, he's seen the studies. It is real what your mind believes and, body changes. But this was different. This wasn't like I felt better, or maybe I could have achieved this through meditation. If I stopped and calmed my breath down, I could have calmed myself down. But this was different. This was a distinct feeling from the top of my head and flowing throughout my body. And I don't think you have that kind of control to do that just through, your own mental process, the placebo effect.
Yeah, you didn't choose the oil.
No, it was distinct. I'm telling you, Trapper, it was a drop on the very top of my head, and I felt it pour over my skull and down my shoulders and right through my body. I'll never forget that. And it literally pushed the anxiety down and out of me. And when it was just through my body, I was completely anxiety free. And like I said, I went right to bed. My first thought was, I'm going to call on Jesus.
You mentioned in your email also that other things have happened along the way. So feel free, go ahead.
Yeah. So the next one is, I'd seen a YouTube video about, contacting your guardian angel, and they said to be humble about it. And I said, okay, well, why don't I give that a try? Because I'm a freelance writer and my kids are in school and my wife works. I have the house to myself. So I was sitting in a chair and I humbly asked my guardian angel, I said, thank you for being with me my whole life. I know you've protected me from things I don't know about and things I do know about. And thank you. And I said, if you're allowed to show me a sign, please show me a sign. And I said, maybe turn that fan on, above my head. I said, whatever you do, just please make it blatant, because I'm not very observant. You've been watching me my whole life. I'm not an observant guy. And so, don't give me a breeze against the window, that kind of thing. So it really wasn't much longer, maybe 20 minutes. I'm in the kitchen. I'm about to make a smoothie. I'm at the blender, and it's plugged in. It's got a 3-prong plug into the wall. Next to it is a banana stand, a metal brass banana stand. So as I'm about to make the smoothie, I'm just staring right at it, and the blender is slightly aside, so I can actually see the plug. And it's one of these plugs that's very difficult to plug in. It's a tight fit. So as I'm standing there, the plug shot out sideways and to the left and hit that banana stand and making a huge ding sound. And I was stunned. There was no spark. There was no puff of smoke. There was no darkness around the socket. Everything was fine. I said, okay, thank you. I literally looked up and I said, okay, got it.
Ping. It's like, yo, ping.
Yeah,
so in case I love it. Yeah. In case you weren't looking, ping, but you actually watched it go flying out of there directly to the left into the thing.
The plug didn't come out and then go sideways. It went directly sideways. You know what I mean? I don't know how that happened. Or maybe it came out so quickly I didn't see it. And then that loud ping. So I said, okay, well, that's pretty clear. And so then there was another time when again I'm home alone and I'm working and I'm just feeling really, really kind of down on myself. And I spoke to my guardian angel again. I said, look, I know you've already shown me a sign. I don't know what the protocols are. I don't know how many signs you're allowed to give me, but if you could let me know you're here again, that would greatly lift my spirits. And I said, I understand if you can't. Again, I don't know the rules, you do, but that would be wonderful. So not long after that, I'm on my kitchen table working on my laptop, and I have a chandelier above it, and that just starts gently swaying. And now it wasn't like a crazy big sway like poltergeist that would scare me. It was a gentle sway. So I'm like, oh my God, and it was right above me. And so my first thing was I took out a video. I had my camera and I started videotaping it. I called my daughter down. She was upstairs. She comes down. I told her, and she witnessed it too. It gently swayed, and this went on for probably about 15 minutes, much longer than the inertia it would normally take for just to that kind of slow down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and your friend would tell you, well, obviously there was a movement in the earth. There was some kind of shaking. You weren't perceiving it, but somehow, right. and I assume that you've never seen that happen before or since.
Nope.
Only
never.
At that moment of the prayer,
Yes.
Just a coincidence.
And like I said, I have the video. I will send it to you.
Yeah. You know what I like also? I assume the chandelier was on. The light was on.
Actually, no, it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't on. Interesting.
No.
Yeah, because I know. In my experience, God loves using light with me. Mm. When I got my vision back that first time, at 2:30 in the morning, where suddenly my room was just completely aglow. And initially, my initial thought was, it is pitch black, but I'm able to see. Now I realize, no, that was the light of God. That was the light of God just filling up the room. All my vision issues were gone. I'm able to see that it's pitch black outside. It's light in the room. And I'm realizing that in that moment, God is basically saying, I'm right here.
I'm trying to fix a light. Tell me if it's working.
Yeah, seems to be.
Yeah, it seems to be. Thank you, Roger. Roger Baldacci sharing his stories here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. Our big takeaways today, beyond everything Roger shared with us, is it all begins with I'm sorry. That is it right there. Would you agree, God?
It's a wonderful thing. No matter how filthy something gets, you can always clean it right up.
Amen. Thank you for sharing your stories. Have you shared your story? You haven't? Go to touchedbyheaven.net. Contact me there. I want to hear your story for the podcast. Thank you for helping us out on a monthly basis financially by going to patreon.com, patreon.com. Look for Trapper Jack. Thank you for that. And I just thank you. I just thank you. Why? Because I can. So thank you for listening to Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I'll see you next week. I'm Trapper Jack.